Grand Admiral Zorg came to Earth to be a god. But after signing one wrong form, he became something else, a taxpayer. Watch how humanity destroyed the galaxy's strongest empire, not with weapons, but with laws, fines, and the terrifying power of a health and safety inspection. The sky over Earth turned black. It was not a storm. It was the Great Sarkonian Empire. Their spaceships were massive, blocking out the sun. They looked like giant metal sharks floating in the clouds. Grand Admiral Zorg stood on his floating command platform. He was 8 feet tall, with green skin and shiny black armor. He held a large plasma rifle that hummed with dangerous energy. He looked down at the United Nations building in New York City. Zorg was ready for war. He expected human fighter jets. He expected tanks. He expected screaming and explosions. But there was silence. Zorg floated down to the ground. His heavy boots crushed the concrete. Behind him, 50 elite alien soldiers aimed their weapons. In front of the United Nations building, there was no army. There was only a small plastic table. Sitting at the table was a small human man. He wore a boring gray suit and thick glasses. He was drinking a cup of tea. The man looked up and smiled. "Good morning. You must be the invasion force. My name is Mr. Henderson." Zorg was confused. He roared, "I am Grand Admiral Zorg. I have destroyed 1,000 worlds. Kneel before me or burn." Mr. Henderson did not kneel. He simply nodded. "Oh, we know. We saw your ships. Very impressive. Look, we don't want to fight. War is loud and expensive. We have decided to surrender immediately." Zorg lowered his gun. He blinked his large reptilian eyes. "Wait. You just give up." "Yes," Henderson said calmly. He opened a thin briefcase. He pulled out a single sheet of white paper. "Humans are tired. We are bad at ruling ourselves. We would love to be part of the Zarkonian Empire. Please, just sign this standard transfer of planet form." Zorg looked at the paper. It was very short. It just said standard transfer of planet, stop, at the top. "Is this a trick?" Zorg asked suspiciously. "No trick," Henderson said. "It just makes you the legal owner of Earth. Once you sign, you are the boss. All our laws become your laws." Zorg laughed. A loud, booming laugh. "Stupid humans. You give away your world for nothing." Zorg grabbed the pen from Henderson. He pressed hard on the paper and signed his name in big, jagged alien letters. "Earth is mine." Zorg shouted. Suddenly, a sound filled the air. Whir-clack. Whir-clack. Zorg looked around. "What is that noise? Is it a weapon?" "No," Henderson said. He stood up. He wasn't smiling anymore. He put on his glasses and looked very serious. Inside the United Nations building, 1,000 lights turned on. The sound got louder. It was the sound of 10,000 printers starting at the same time. Henderson pointed to the paper Zorg had just signed. "Congratulations, Admiral. You are now the legal government of Earth." That document triggered the automatic transition. "Good," Zorg said. "Now, I will enslave your people." "Ah, not yet," Henderson said, holding up a finger. "You signed the stop form. Clause 1 requires a full asset audit before new management takes over. We have to count every tree, every car, and every rock on Earth to make sure you get what you paid for." Zorg growled. "I don't care about counting rocks. I command you to stop." Henderson shook his head. "I can't. You are the government now. And government rules say an audit is mandatory. It cannot be stopped. Not even by you." Thousands of pieces of paper began to fly out of the building's windows like snow. "Please take a seat, Admiral," Henderson said, pulling out a second, much thicker stack of papers. "The audit usually takes 4 to 6 weeks. You cannot leave the planet until we finish. Would you like a cookie while you wait?" Zorg looked at his mighty fleet in the sky, then at the boring little man. For the first time, the alien conqueror felt a strange shiver of fear. Grand Admiral Zorg waited for 3 long days. The asset audit from the first day was extremely boring. He watched humans slowly counting trees and measuring the width of sidewalks. Zorg was a warrior, not an accountant. He was furious. He felt his power slipping away. He needed to remind the silly humans that he was a scary conqueror. "Land the fleet!" Zorg screamed into his command radio. "Land in every big city. Crush their parks. Block their roads. Show them our strength." The orders went out instantly. Thousands of massive black destroyers descended from the sky. They slammed down in Times Square in New York, Piccadilly Circus in London, and the busy streets of Tokyo. The ground shook violently. Pavement cracked. Statues were knocked over. Zorg watched on his main screen and smiled. Finally, this looked like a real invasion. But the humans did not run away screaming. Instead, a different kind of army appeared. They did not drive tanks. They drove small, slow scooters with flashing orange lights. They wore bright neon vests. They were parking wardens. Zorg watched a screen showing London. A warden named Gary walked up to a giant alien warship. The ship was the size of a building, hot and smoking from the landing. Gary did not look impressed. He looked at his watch. He shook his head. "You can't park here, mate," Gary muttered to himself. "This is a red route." Gary pulled out a small machine. He typed in the spaceship's license plate number, which was just a weird alien symbol. He printed out a bright yellow sticky note. Slap. He stuck the ticket right onto the hull of the warship. All around the world, thousands of wardens were doing the same thing. "Admiral," the weapons officer shouted on the bridge. "We are being attacked. They are covering our sensors with yellow paper." Zorg turned red with rage. "Insolence! Vaporize them. Fire the plasma cannons at those men in neon vests." The weapons officer smashed the big red button to fire the guns. Nothing happened. The guns were silent. A calm, robotic voice spoke from the ship's computer. "Error. Friendly fire protocol active. Weapon launch denied." "What?" Zorg screamed. "Why won't it fire?" Mr. Henderson, who was still sitting in the corner of the room reading a magazine, cleared his throat. "It's the law, Admiral. Remember the form you signed? You are the legal governor of Earth now. Those parking wardens work for the government. They work for you. The ship's computer is programmed to obey the law. It knows a government cannot legally declare war on its own traffic officers. You can't shoot your own employees." Zorg pulled at his ears in frustration. "Fine. We will just leave. Pilots, take off. Return to orbit." The pilots pulled the levers to fly away. The engines made a loud groaning sound, but the ships did not move. They were stuck to the ground. The computer voice spoke again. "Error. Engines locked. Outstanding financial penalties detected. Vehicle is impounded until fines are paid." Zorg looked at the main screen. A digital bill appeared. It was moving very fast. Parking in a no-stopping zone, $500. Blocking a fire hydrant, $1,000. Vehicle over weight limit, $50,000. Because Zorg had landed 5,000 ships, the total fine was already in the billions of dollars. "Pay the fine to unlock engines," the computer said. Zorg checked his pockets. He had laser batteries and space rations, but he had no Earth money. He was the most powerful being in the galaxy, but his entire fleet was trapped by a parking ticket. Grand Admiral Zorg was tired of being humiliated. To pay the billions of dollars in parking fines, he had to order his fleet to melt down a solid gold asteroid and sell it to Earth banks. It was embarrassing, but his ships were finally free. Zorg decided that he was done playing games. He was done with parking tickets. He wanted to sit on the throne of Earth physically. If he sat in the big chair in the Capitol building, surely the humans would finally respect him. He gathered his scariest soldiers. These were the Void Reapers. They wore black armor covered in sharp metal spikes. Their helmets had skulls on them. They carried heavy plasma cannons that glowed with blue fire. Zorg marched to the front doors of the global government building. He kicked the doors open. "I am here to rule," he shouted. But he did not meet a general. He met a woman named Ms. Gable. She was very short, and she held a clipboard. She did not look at Zorg's face. She looked at his boots. "Excuse me," Ms. Gable said, tapping her pen on her clipboard. "You cannot enter this facility. You are in violation of the Health and Safety Code, Section 4. Zorg lowered his weapon. "What? I am the Emperor. I can go where I want." "Not with those shoes," Ms. Gable said firmly. "The floor was just polished. Your metal boots have no grip. If you slip and fall, the government is liable for the lawsuit. As the head of the government, you would be suing yourself. It is a financial disaster." Zorg looked at his soldiers. They looked confused. Before Zorg could speak, Ms. Gable pointed at the sharp spikes on the soldiers' shoulders. "And these spikes? They are a severe poking hazard. If a civilian bumps into you, they could get a scratch. That is a level 3 safety violation. This is armor." Zorg screamed. "It is supposed to be dangerous." "Not in a public building," Ms. Gable replied calmly. "You must make the workplace safe." Ms. Gable snapped her fingers. A team of humans ran out carrying rolls of pink bubble wrap and sticky tape. Zorg tried to fight, but his ship's computer warned him again. "Alert! Insurance premiums will rise by 400% if safety standards are not met." Zorg wanted to save money, so he groaned and let the humans do their work. It took an hour. The terrifying Void Reapers did not look scary anymore. Their sharp spikes were wrapped in thick layers of puffy pink plastic. Their heavy boots were covered in soft blue foam socks to prevent slipping. Ms. Gable even put bright orange stickers on their plasma guns that said, "Warning, hot surface, do not touch." "Fine." Zorg grumbled. He looked like a giant baby in a plastic suit. "Now, we go inside." He tried to march his army of 500 soldiers through the door. "Stop!" Ms. Gable yelled, blocking the way with her hand. "Can't you read the sign?" She pointed to a small sign above the door. It said, "Maximum occupancy, 50 persons." "This is a fire hazard zone," she explained. "If there is a fire, too many people would block the exit. You can only go in 50 at a time." Zorg looked at his massive army. They were standing in a single file line that stretched for blocks. At this speed, it would take all day just to get inside the building. Zorg sat down on the steps and put his head in his hands. The invasion was stopped by a door sign. Grand Admiral Zorg had enough of offices, forms, and safety inspections. He realized that trying to rule from an office was a mistake. He needed raw power. He needed weapons. He decided to seize the means of production. If he controlled the factories, he could build his own war machines and ignore the parking wardens and safety inspectors. He marched his bubble-wrapped soldiers to the largest manufacturing plant in the city, the Iron Works factory. Zorg kicked the factory doors open, tearing the "Authorized Personnel Only" sign off the wall. Inside, hundreds of human workers were building cars and drones. The noise of hammers and drills was loud. Zorg fired a warning shot into the ceiling. The factory went silent. "Listen to me," Zorg bellowed. "I am your new boss. Stop making cars. From now on, you will build death cannons for the Zirconian Empire. You will work 18 hours a day. There will be no breaks. There will be no pay. Work or perish." The workers did not look scared. They looked annoyed. A large man named Big Dave, wearing a greasy blue overall, wiped his hands on a rag. He pulled a silver whistle from his pocket and blew it hard. Fweet. Immediately, every single worker in the factory stopped moving. They turned off their machines. They sat down on the floor and crossed their arms. "What is this?" Zorg demanded. "Why are you sitting?" "I said work." Big Dave walked up to Zorg. He did not bow. He held out a crumpled piece of paper. "We are on strike," Dave said simply. "You can't change our job description without a meeting. Also, forcing us to work 18 hours violates the Intergalactic Labor Rights Agreement. We checked the records. When you declared yourself emperor, you agreed to follow all local labor laws. I am the emperor." Zorg screamed, his face turning purple. "I do not care about labor laws. Soldiers, force them to work." The alien soldiers stepped forward, but they hesitated. They looked at the humans sitting comfortably on the floor. One of the alien soldiers, a trooper named Glip-Glop, raised his hand. "Excuse me, Admiral," Glip-Glop said nervously. "But I was listening to the human. Did he say, paid overtime?" Big Dave nodded at the alien soldier. "Oh yeah. Time and a half for weekends. Plus, full medical and dental coverage. You guys have dental, right? Your teeth look very sharp. Must be expensive to clean." Glip-Glop looked at Zorg. "Admiral, we have not been paid in 6 light years. And my tooth hurts. Do we have a dental plan?" Zorg was shocked. "You are warriors of the void. You do not need dentists. You need glory." "Glory doesn't fix a cavity," Glip-Glop grumbled. He looked at Big Dave. "Is there room on the floor for us?" "Always room for a brother in the Union," Dave smiled. To Zorg's horror, his own elite guard put down their weapons. They sat down next to the human workers. Big Dave handed Glip-Glop a sandwich. The factory was completely stopped. Zorg stood alone in the silence, defeated not by an army, but by a lunch break and a demand for better wages. Grand Admiral Zorg ran away from the factory. He left his soldiers eating sandwiches with the Union workers. He was done trying to rule these humans. He was done with their forms, their safety rules, and their strikes. He fled back to his main flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, which was still hovering in the sky. He had only one plan left. If he could not rule Earth, he would destroy it. He stormed onto the bridge of his ship. He was alone. "Computer," he screamed. "Target the Earth's core. Prepare the doomsday cannon. I will blow this miserable rock into dust." The ship hummed. The giant cannon underneath the ship began to glow red. Zorg smiled a wicked smile. Finally, raw power. No more paper. He slammed his fist onto the fire button. Nothing happened. The red light on the cannon turned off. The lights on the bridge flickered and died. The ship went dark. The artificial gravity failed, and Zorg floated up toward the ceiling. "Computer!" Zorg yelled, kicking his legs in the air. "Report. Why is the power off?" A message appeared on the main screen. It was flashing in bright red letters, "Assets frozen." A face appeared on the video monitor. It was not a soldier. It was a man in a beige suit with very neat hair. He looked even more boring than Mr. Henderson. "Hello," the man said. "I am Mr. Perkins from the Internal Revenue Service, the tax office. We have seized this vessel." "Seized?" Zorg floated closer to the screen. "This is an Imperial warship. You cannot take it." "Actually, we can," Mr. Perkins said, adjusting his tie. "You see, Admiral, when you signed the Stop form in Part 1, you declared yourself the supreme ruler of Earth for all eternity. That means you legally accepted responsibility for Earth's history. That includes Earth's debts." Mr. Perkins tapped a calculator. "We checked the records. The previous rulers of Earth didn't pay all their taxes. Since you are the new ruler, you owe us for 5,000 years of back taxes. Plus interest. The total comes to 50 trillion credits." Zorg's eyes popped open. "I don't have 50 trillion credits. I am a conqueror, not a bank." "I thought so," Mr. Perkins sighed. "Since you cannot pay cash, we must take your assets to cover the debt. Look out the window, please." Zorg looked out the thick glass of the bridge. He saw something terrifying. They were not fighter jets. They were space tow trucks. Dozens of rusty, clanking human spaceships with giant metal hooks were flying around the alien fleet. Zorg watched in horror as a tow truck clamped a giant metal boot onto his engine. Another tow truck hooked a chain to his prized fighter jets. "Hey!" Zorg shouted. "That is my car. Put it down." "It is government property now," Mr. Perkins said. "We are selling your fleet to pay for new schools and roads. Thank you for your donation, Admiral." One by one, the mighty alien ships were towed away into the darkness of space. Zorg was left floating in his dark, cold command room. He had no army, no weapons, no money, and now, no ride home. He realized then that the most powerful force in the universe was not a laser cannon. It was the tax man. Grand Admiral Zorg sat on the cold metal floor of his command deck. He looked small and defeated. His scary black armor was gone, taken by the tax collectors. His giant gun was gone, confiscated by the safety inspector. His loyal soldiers were gone, currently enjoying a coffee break with the Human Workers' Union. Zorg was all alone. The lights were off because the electric company had cut the power for unpaid bills. He held his head in his green hands and quietly sobbed. He had conquered galaxies, but he could not defeat the terrifying power of Earth's paperwork. Suddenly, there was a polite knock on the airlock door. "Knock, knock." Zorg looked up with tired eyes. "Go away," he whispered. "I have nothing left to take. You took my ship. You took my dignity. Leave me alone." The door hissed open. It was Mr. Henderson, the small man in the gray suit from the very first day. He looked fresh and happy. He held a steaming cup of tea in one hand and his briefcase in the other. He walked over to Zorg and offered him a tissue. "Rough week, huh?" Henderson asked kindly. Zorg blew his nose honkingly loud. "I hate this planet," Zorg cried. "I want to go home. I don't want to be emperor anymore. It is too much work. There are too many forms. Too many rules. It is a nightmare." Henderson nodded understandingly. "Ruling is a headache, isn't it? That is why we humans let you do it. But, if you want to quit, I can help you." Zorg's eyes lit up with hope. "You can. Please. I will do anything. Just let me leave this solar system." Henderson opened his briefcase. A golden light seemed to shine from inside it. He pulled out one final document. It was printed on pink paper. "This is the voluntary resignation form," Henderson explained. "It officially ends your rule as emperor. It cancels the audit, the parking tickets, and the union strikes. Once you sign this, you are just a tourist." Zorg snatched the paper. He didn't even read it. He grabbed a pen and signed his name so fast the paper smoked. Done. I resigned. I am nobody. Now, can I go? Almost, Henderson said, checking the signature. Everything looks in order. But, there is a small early termination fee for breaking the contract before the term ended. Also, you need to pay that spaceport exit tax. Zorg screamed. I have no money. The tax man took everything. Well, Henderson looked at Zorg's boots. Those are very nice boots. And that is a nice digital watch. We accept trade-ins. 10 minutes later, a small escape pod blasted off from Earth. Inside, Grand Admiral Zorg was shivering. He was wearing only his polka-dot underwear. He had given his boots, his watch, and his cape to Henderson to pay the final fees. As the pod flew into deep space, Zorg deleted Earth from his star map. He locked the coordinates. He put a warning beacon in space that said, "Danger, do not approach." Extreme bureaucracy. Back on Earth, Mr. Henderson stood on the roof of the United Nations. He sipped his tea and watched the alien fly away. He held the pink paper in his hand. The invasion was over. The humans had won. They did not fire a single bullet. They did not launch a single missile. They simply buried the enemy in red tape until they gave up. Henderson smiled and turned to his assistant. File this under V for victory, he said. And then, let's take a lunch break. I think we earned it.